Good morning, everyone. Today we study about approximated nearest to 10,000 and 100,000. Yesterday we studied about approximated to nearest 100 and 1,000 and tens. 500, in example, 535 nearest to 10, 200, nearest to 200. Yes, we nearest in 100 units, it back to 0 and tens back to 0. You look for tens. You look for tens. It's 3. 3 is the smallest. Don't give it me anything. You will back 5 in 100. It will be 500. And if the number, in example, if the number 5,632, 2 in unit back to 0, 3 in tens back to 0, and you look for 100. 6 is more than 5. It will be give it to me 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000. Then 1 plus 5, it will be 6. The number, it will be 6,000. And today, nearest to 10,000. If the number is 99,000, 9,999. Yes, 9 in unit back to 0, 9 in tens back to 0, 9 in 100 back to 0. Then you look for the number before the nearest 10,000. Is a 9 in 100, 9 in 100. It will be given to me 1. The number is give it to me 1. Then the number is 9 plus 1, it will be 10. It will be what? It will be 10,000. It will be 10,000. If you look for another example, the number is 25,352. 2 in unit back to 0, 5 in tens back to 0, 3 in 100 back to 0. You look for the 1,000. 5, yes, 5 is more. Give it to me 1 in 10,000. Then 2 plus 1, it will be 3. The number, it will be 30,000. For another example, 24,655. 5 in a unit back to 0, 5 in tens back to 0, 6 in 100 back to 0, and 4 in 1,000 back to 0. You look for the 1,000. 4 is smallest, don't give it to me anything. Then 2 in 10,000, it will be back to that, it will be 20,000. It will be 20,000. And the last is it 52,635.5. All the number from right, it will be back to 0. 5, it will be back to 0, decimal point, and 5 in unit, it will be back to 0, 0 in tens, and 0 in 100, and 0 in 1,000. You look for the 1,000, it's 2. 2 is the smallest, don't give it to me anything. 5 in 10,000, it will be back, the number is 50,000. What about the 100,000? What about the 100,000? What about the 100,000? If the number 99,999, all the numbers from the unit, it will be back to 0. Unit 0, tens 0, and 100 0. You look for the 1,000. You look for the 1,000. Yes. In 1,000, 9 it's more than 5. It will be, give it to me 1, then 1 plus 9, it will be 10. The number is 100,000. For another example, 655,352 nearest to 100,000. The number in a unit back to 0, and tens back to 0, and 100 back to 0. In 1,000 back to 0, and 10,000 back to 0. 5 is more, give it to me 1, then 6 plus 1, it will be 700,000. Okay. What about the nearest unit? The nearest unit. For example, 3.5 nearest to unit. The unit is 3 and 5 in tenses. Yes, 5 in here, get it to me another 1. 5 in tenses, back to 0, and 3, it will be in here. What? 3 plus 1, it will be 4. Don't forget the decimal point, or you can write 4 only. If the number 752.53 nearest to unit. The 2 is a unit, okay? 5 in tenses, 3 in hundredths. 3, it will be back to 0, and a 5 back to 0, decimal point, and you look for tenses. 5 is a more, give it to me 1, then 2 plus 1, it will be 3 in a unit, and you will back all the number. For another example, 35.3 nearest to unit. 3 in tenses and 5 in unit. 3, it will be back to 0, decimal point, and don't give it to me anything, then we will back all the number again. Okay. What about the nearest? Again, for a nearest unit, if the number 65.352, the 2, it will be back to 0, and a 5 back to 0, and 3 back to 0, decimal point. You look for tenses. The tenses is 3. 3 is the smallest. The number, it will be back again. If the number 72.635 nearest to unit. If the number in here, then you will back 0, 0 in 5, it will be back to 0, and 3 back to 0, and 6 back to 0, decimal point. And you look for tenses. Tenses is 6, 6 is more, give it to me 1, and 2 plus 1, it will be 3, and the last number is back, the number is 73 only. Don't say 73,000, 73 only. What about the nearest? 10 says, what about the nearest? 10 says not tens, 10 says, nearest tenses. If the number 35.62, nearest to tenses. Where is tenses? The tenses after the decimal point. Then you look, you write the number back only, decimal point. You look for hundredths, is 2, 2 is the smallest, and it will be back to 0, and 6, it will be back again. In another example, 72.35, nearest to tenses, Then 5 in hundredths, it will be back to 0, and give it to me 1 in tenses. Then 3 plus 1, it will be 4, the decimal point, and you write the number again. It's 72. 72.4. With another example, 652.78. The nearest tenses, 8 in hundredths, back to 0, and 7, you look for 8, 8 is more, give it to me 1, then 7 plus 1, it will be 8, decimal point, and you write all the number again. 652.8 or 0.80. For brackets, if the number 752.355 plus 62.37. If you remember, in addition, we didn't find that's the number. You will put 0 from yourself. Then 5 plus 0, it will be 5. 7 plus 5, it will be 12. 2, carry up 1. And 3 plus 3, it will be 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. Don't forget the decimal point. 2 plus 2 is a 4. And 5 plus 6, it's 11. 1, carry up 1. Again, 1 plus 7, it will be 8. Nearest is this number. On tenses. Where is the tenses? Is it 7? The number is in thousand is back to 0, and hundreds is back to 0, and 7, you look for that in the tenses. In hundreds, the 2 is smallest, don't give it to me anything. 7, it will be back the number decimal point, and you write all the number again. Okay, what about this number? Nearest to 100. the approximated in here, all the numbers, it will be back to zeros, hundreds and thousands, tenths, all the numbers back to zero. Don't forget the decimal point. And 4 in unit back to zero, 1 in the tenths back to zero. 1 is the smallest in tenths. Don't give it to me anything. The nearest in 100 is 800. The nearest in 100 is 800. Thank you guys.